Hello everyone and welcome to another painting video. I'm Joe Menza, and this one here we're going to do a rapid stream through the mountains, and I've already laid in a clear spray from my spray bottle. Of course you can use your brush and dip it in some water and make a coating across. I do it it's just a casual nature of just spray some water on there. You know, when you start out, you try to do everything perfect, and at this point, I just kind of let it go. It's not as everything's not as critical as you think it is early on. So now I'm using some yellow ochre here and just trying to create some random areas. I have a plan in mind. If you saw the opening, you saw the painting already. So a lot of times I don't have a plan, but this time here, I know what I'm doing right from the start. So this happens if you're working from a photo, whatever. So I'm doing my initial washes, and I've got a hilly sort of a tree to the right. To the left, there's going to be a bit of a hill, and then the river coming down the middle, the river rapids. And then to the left, there'll be some rocks in the left corner. I use a little bit of red in there because my plan is to use some brown. So when I scrape that away, I want it to have a little bit of a brownish reddish texture. So yeah, right now it doesn't look like anything, but I'm just sort of laying in the shapes in advance, hitting it with a little ultramarine blue here for that little segment of sky that's going to be visible, and just kind of going to blend that in a little bit. Just add a little alizarin just to create a little purple, mixing that right on the board. A little bluish purplish sky. Coming in a little darker. And blending it with my goat hair brush. I've said this before, any soft brush will do if you want to do some blending like I'm doing. When I first started out, I thought, well, once you paint it on the paper, that's it, you leave it alone, you don't touch it again. But you find out just how flexible through experimentation you can be and how far you can push the edge. So again, I'm blending with the goat hair brush. This one here is a little different in that I have an idea what I'm painting before I paint it. This is some cerulean blue. You can use cobalt, or you can even use ultramarine blue. Just do it very lightly. Just thought I'd use that. I had some in my basket, and I just thought I'd use a little bit of that for some distant mountains, just to get some additional color. This little mountain will be in the background. So just making a little shape here. The left and right hand sides of it will be blocked with some foliage. And coming in with a little ultramarine blue. I didn't really clean my brush. Just a darker, this will be a darker, more closer hill. And I'm using my medium brush for that. If you want smaller brush strokes, maybe the large brush is just too big for you, or maybe you're using 9x12 paper, have at the medium. I mean, it's still going to have a lot of functionality. And I do believe Ron Ranson was using the medium quite a bit as his main go-to brush, and not so much even the large brush. So I'm just kind of dabbing in some foliage on this hill. This is sort of a second wash. Again, because I know what I'm doing in advance, I kind of can think ahead so many moves in my mind where I'm putting on each color and knowing what the final product is going to be. A lot of times I paint from imagination and I just kind of wing it, and I just kind of let it happen. But in this case here, I sort of have an idea what I'm going for. So that's why a little bit slightly different of a process. So as opposed to going from a photo toward just putting paint on paper. So we're doing the same making of the greens, Payne's gray, ultramarine blue, cad yellow or yellow ochre. That same 3 combination to get some varying shades into this hilly tree structure here. And by now our sky is dried. Now, little foliage coming down as we let that hill dry. Just happened to pick up the large goat hair brush from Frank Clark. The reason I have that brush is because when I first started, I was actually looking up watercolor. I bought my first watercolor. I was doing oils. I didn't like the mess of it. I played with acrylics. It dried really fast. I played with pastels. It was kind of chalky and messy on your fingers. And then I came to the conclusion I really enjoy the art aspect of it, but I really haven't found a medium. Every medium has its sort of drawbacks. And I said, you know, I'm going to try watercolor just for grins. I bought like a tray of it had those little round, something the kids would use in school. And I sat there and I must have painted 3 or 4 postcard, maybe a little bigger, 5x7 size things. I did a lighthouse, and I did a couple other little things, and I did enjoy it. And then I thought to myself, you know, there's a lot of people, and here I'm just kind of laying in the same colors from the trees to a degree, just to set the stage for the water. Said to myself, there's got to be a guy, because I started with the Bob Ross thing, and I said, there's got to be somebody out there that paints and kind of has somewhat of a system down, and that paints in that fashion that doesn't really do a lot of detail. So I started doing a search, and the first guy I came across was Frank Clark, and I found his videos where he was showing the initial basics, and he was sitting at his table, and then he did one with just burnt umber, and I ordered his brushes. I had to wait like 3-4 weeks for them to come because they came from, I guess, Ireland or something. And so I got his brushes, and I painted. My first one was the burnt umber mountain, and it was really cool, and it came out really well. And then I was encouraged to continue, and I thought, well, I like what he's doing. I mean, there were only a few videos of his on at the time, and I said, I'm going to keep searching around. And finally I found Stephen Cronin, and from there I found Ron Ranson, because he was utilizing some things from his style and mentioned him in one of his videos. So that's where I got into Ron Ranson, started buying his videos. We created the group on Facebook. Matthew Clemens created the Facebook group, Ron Ranson Disciples, as we call it. He's sort of the father of the hake brush as far as England and people wanting to use it here. Now here I don't want to get too far away from what we're talking about. I used some burnt umber to the left, and I've used the card to start scraping some initial rocks. And we've got a rock almost in the center, and letting that dry just a little bit and coming back to the foliage on top and side. So from there, I found Ron Ranson and then a few others, and Dave Usher, and a few other guys. So I kept on searching and watching, and I was in a phase where I didn't have a whole lot of work going on. I was selling my business. I just gave it a little spray there with my spray bottle, keep it open. And now you can see the trees to the left starting to really take effect. You've got the highlights while it's still wet in the wet, and building up those layers really made for a nice grouping of foliage there. So I just, like a sponge, was absorbing everything I possibly could, and I found a lot of these artists online. I bought their videos. I paid for streaming of their videos. Herman Peckel is another one. He's fantastic. So I've watched so many videos. Just put probably in 3 years, I've put in 6 years worth of learning. So now I'm taking a toothbrush and I'm just flicking on some water just to try and make some random things happen. Coming back in with everybody's favorite, the credit card, and putting in some shoreline things, some rocks. But yeah, so that's kind of the little bit of background. And I made sure I painted like every day, tried different papers, tried different colors, different brands of paint. Did a lot of experimentation, and it was at that point that I said, you know, some of the things I'm finding out, I think I could explain them. I don't want to say better, because I think I can explain them in a way I think that will resonate quicker with people. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like if I could explain it in a way I would have grasped it sooner, I could maybe have it make more sense to people who are more like me. So that's why I wanted to start doing the videos and sharing my work and stuff. So just some rambling thoughts. Can't always just talk about the painting process. But I'm coming back to the Ron Ranson brush here, and this is the large. I'm just working on this base back over here. You can see our mountain in the back. Our cerulean mountain has dried pretty well. You can tell it's back there, but we'll do a little more to push it back. Just took the card and I put in a bunch of rocks. Now look at all those little specks of rocks there. For those of you who like the rock process, it's too many, but don't be afraid to put a bunch in. Then you can always come back and paint over it and do it again. I just gave that a little spray and a little bit of a wipe with the kitchen towel. Don't be afraid to get in there and play. Give it a little spritzer with the toothbrush. Did I have toothbrush on my... I don't think I had toothbrush on my material. I'm always forgetting something. I don't think I had toothbrush on there. But you can use a regular paintbrush. You can shake it. You can flick it with your finger. I should put old toothbrush. Next video, I'll have old toothbrush on there. Just one of the little tools for getting texture, you know. You don't have to use it at all. You know, if you turn a spray bottle, if you take the little Mr. Spray bottle and you turn it upside down and you spray a couple of pumps, it'll empty. And then when you turn it back over and you spray it, initially some little blobs will come out. It's almost just like a toothbrush. And of course, I wouldn't recommend it during these times that we're in, but you can spit on your painting. Just don't do it when anybody's around. Remember me spitting on my paintings? Yes, visit my eBay shop. Make sure you wear gloves when you get my paintings in the mail. Let them air dry for about a week. No, but this is, you know, I don't like to talk about it, but this situation is unlike anything. Oh, anything I've seen. I mean, this is people. I hope people stay safe and we all pull through this. We're all in this together. And that's why I've been making more videos, like within a few days, a couple days apart, because I know people are at home, people need things to do, and I don't know. If I was getting videos and I was home and I'd be like really pretty happy. That's what I'd be looking at. Just immerse myself in something enjoyable. So I hope everybody is enjoying their painting, and don't listen to the news too much. A few minutes here and there. Don't drive yourself off the deep end. Stay hopeful. This too shall pass. So I've taken the card and I've made some scrapes through the foliage. Now it looks like we've got a bunch of trees. Out of that one clump, look, it looks like we've got about 5 trees in there. I just love the way that happens. It's just so quick. And the paint sort of, if you do it at the right timing, the paint closes in on the scratch. And it does like the work for you. It makes the branch, it's not like a solid line, but it's like, it puts the details in for you. It's very, very cool. That's what draws me to watercolor. People say, well, why don't you do acrylics? Why don't you do oils? I mean, those are great and all, but there's things that happen in watercolor that just, they happen. And it's like fate taking over. And here's some more rocks. And a little just touching with that soft brush. Sometimes you go in heavy and rough, and sometimes you come in with the lighter brushes like a dental hygienist. You're just going in very lightly. A little bit of toothbrush. And now you could see how that foliage is now, it's pushed that mountain in the back, like it's just behind there. It wasn't like that before. That's what I was trying to say with the left and right side being blocked off. And I suppose I could have used more of a purple tone to match the sky, but sometimes I'm trying to get colors in. But my game plan is to use the cerulean with some white in the river to make the river look like it's a little more wild. So it'll match there. So there'll be some cohesion in the theme of colors. Coming back in with the card, everybody's favorite. You'll notice there's an odd texture as I scrape the cards, and it's something I've kind of figured out. I don't know how we can capitalize on it, but if you take your watercolor paper and you put it on a piece of cardboard and the cardboard has like any sort of texture to it, when you scrape with the card, it'll like show the texture from the cardboard behind it. So I was thinking, what if you put something behind your paper that had some kind of rough, just different textures, and when you scraped it with the card, it created, it's something I'll play with as time goes on, but it's fun when you see little things like that. Oh, I used it to put this cardboard behind my paper. Look at that. Something different happened. All right, I let it dry for a little bit. There was a little bit of a segue there. I'm going to work a little more on these rocks on the bottom. Still not 100% happy with the rocks. Don't want them to look too cartoonish. And I'm going to use a little bit of, not as much red got through there as I would have liked. So I'm going to just use a little light red. For those of you that are wondering, when you go out and you buy, like you use Daniel Smith or similar like artist paints, and you say, oh, they don't have light red. Yeah, the light red is like a Cotman, Winsor, and Newton thing. If you can find an equivalent, then that's great. I don't know of one. So I stick with the light red on my palette. From what I'm told, it's kind of an English painting landscape kind of thing. So more scraping of the rocks till I get it to where I'm happy with it. And just dabbing in a little bit with my fan brush. That fan brush, by the way, I like it. It's long because it's it's actually a Bob Ross oil fan brush. And if I want neat paint and I don't want a lot of water on my brush, it's like a perfect brush to use. That was my first set that the family bought me. Bob Ross painting set. And my first painting actually came out pretty good. I was pretty pleased with it. I did a total of 3 or 4 oil paintings. Now I'm coming in with some yellow ochre to highlight some little more ground foliage. I don't know, after I've been watching a couple of people, I'm like, maybe when it gets nice out, I'll go outside and I'll go back and do a little oil painting. I don't know, when you see people doing it, it's just like when you watch my videos and you go, hey, I could do that. I want to try that. I could do that, you know. These guys do the oil paintings, Dave Usher, Andrew Broussard. It's like, yeah, I want to do that. I wouldn't completely get away from doing watercolor though. Now I've put some highlight of cad yellow hue on top. We still see the sticks of the branches showing through, and then there's the yellow ochre down below. Just tapping that in, and look at that. It's completely transformed from what it was. We have highlights, we have darks, we have ground foliage, a little more on the rocks, and now it's got to a point to where it looks realistic enough to where I'm happy with it. Without a ton of fussing. I mean, it's not like we're really pulling our hair out. There have been a few I pulled my hair out early on. And there's a couple times I got downright frustrated and I ripped up paintings. I've done it. I've ripped up paper. But really you shouldn't, because you should let it dry and put it to the side and then look at it later. It's not really the best way to go about it. Besides that, you can use the back of the paper, so don't waste it. And as we can see, depending on what colors you're using, you could totally wash the paper off and put something over the top. So, and you actually will find different things out about that underpainting. So experiment, don't throw it away. Take and wash the whole thing off and then start over, and you'll have some like unusual colors underneath that didn't 100% come off. And paint something over the top of it. Giving that a little spray back in there. I want it to look like that water goes around the corner. I don't want to lose that sort of turn there. Otherwise it looks like the water just stops there and it doesn't come from anywhere. Again, back to the fan brush. A little bit more spray. Okay, so now it's time to start breaking out the white. And I'm just going straight out of the tube. Why? Laziness as usual. Just, I don't know. It's just something I started doing. Just squirting it right out of the tube. I don't know, you put it on the board, then it goes back on your painting. What's the difference? You know, so I just started squeezing it out of the tube. So now we're going to start having some fun. We're going to start working on the water. So now that there's been some white added into the water, we're going to take some of that cerulean blue and kind of blend that in with the water. It's going to create a nice, very nice color. We're going to blend that in, and then ultimately we're going to come back with some white by itself and create some splashing of the water on top. So it looks like we have a rapid running stream or river. It will make the piece very lively. So I'm just tapping in a little bit of the white. Utilizing the hairs of the brush to create splashes around the rocks, the cresting of water. In my last video, you remember I was talking about leaving white or lifting as opposed to using whites. The white, I feel that it does cresting and foaming of the water. There's two things I'll use white for. Water, well, I'll use it for little highlights of things, maybe figures, this and that. And then, of course, I'll use it for clouds sometimes, but snow on mountains. So, I don't know, is that three things? I lost count. If I was better at math, I wouldn't be doing this. Okay, so I just touched a little white going around the corner there, so it looks like it's rapidly flowing around the corner. And I'm still working with until I get happy with it. I just got to be careful not to cover up too much of that cerulean blue. So we're tapping in with the fan brush. I find that the fan brush, though, it really, because the hairs are spread apart more, it's good for doing water and splashes. So around the base of that land there, this is a point you have to be careful, because if you use too much white, then you just got all white, and then now it's a snow scene. This is Winsor & Newton Titanium White Gouache. It's a little thicker. I like M. Graham's gouache. It's a little thinner, but if you like a thicker gouache, I mean, when it comes out of the tube, it's like thicker than toothpaste. I mean, this stuff is like putty. Then you go with that one. You can add a little water to it then. Whereas when you use the M. Graham, it's thinner than toothpaste, and you won't need any water with it. So now I'm just filling in. See, I am losing the battle of the white, so I'm just going to put a little more of that blue on top. That's what you'd have to do. If you go a little too far with it, well, then put a little of that blue on top. But white blends really good with most of the colors. The problem is it dries back or it gets a little chalky. So if you come on top, the way it blends together, it's kind of reminiscent of like oil paints in a way. And if you do it right, you can get an oil-looking painting. But none of it's going to be really transparent, because gouache isn't really transparent. So plan on covering up pretty much everything underneath, which is why the white tends to take over. All right, so now it's just a matter of tidying things up, just neatening things along the edges. There's some minor details. Putting a little extra on top, because the white will dry back a little bit. So sometimes you come back like a few hours later and it's dried, then you could put just a little more on top and it'll be a little brighter, if that happens. So just tidying it up a little bit. Just around the rocks and things. That's when you can come in after things dry. You can put your darkest darks in. Any little highlights, I'll put in toward that time. And just take my little pen, and I'm going to pop in a couple of birds up here. Always nice to add a little life to the painting. A couple more birds over here. I have a few birds in this scene. And just touching up a little bit again just look at it as it dries and see if, you know, sometimes it's better to come back a little later and look and see where you're at with fresh set of eyes. So let's zoom in and see how we did. There's our rushing water, our birds, and our shoreline there, clouds. And that's it. Here it is in the frame. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a great day.